CMV. Americans saying that the US is a third world country are ignorant and have never set foot on actual third world countries. This ignores how third world countries can have functioning parts of their societies that don't have murder rates worse than some active war zones. Detroit. ***. Why the flock are we still using Cold War metaphors of third world nations in 21st century? The problem is that you're treating the entire USA as one homogenous country. There are areas that are comparable to third world countries that are comparable in size to other countries, but BC they're part of the USA, they get lumped with every other state. I can't change your mind on this one. You are spot on. The only rationale I can come up with is that they are referring to the very minuscule percentage of the population that live in a third world type of way, and a lot of them are mentally ill and do so by their own doings. Could these Americans be making use of hyperbole in their statements? It depends on the third world country and what part of America. When cities in the United States can't provide safe drinking water for several years in a row, it doesn't appear to be a developed country. Another example is infrastructure like power generation failing. Because the entire state didn't bother to winterize generators. Look man, I'm from a third world country and what's happening here is so horrible and cringe that US is like a paradise. Americans, be happy with what you have. Lucky you got to be there. Amen. Sorry, I know it is CMV, but I cannot. I agree. 100%. Deleted. Removed. Clearly you've never been on or heard of the Indian reservations. If those aren't third world living conditions, then what is? I came from a third world country to America. Here beggars on the road carry iPhone. In my country even the richest couldn't afford one. The amount of wealth here is insane. I have nothing really of note to add, but I live in Minneapolis, which is fine, but I've also been to Afghanistan and Mississippi, and while Afghanistan is true third world, Mississippi was shockingly bad for many. You could call Mississippi nearly third world, or as close as you think it could get in the richest nation in the history of the world. When you're used to privilege, anything less feels like oppression, third world country in this case. Think it's either a joke, being over the top, irony, sarcasm, or some mix of all of them. It's hard to tell with some Americans I've seen on the site. In all honesty, anyone actuary believes America is a third world country, they're just wrong. I mean, it has some real big problems, but it's still not third world by any means. I was born in the Philippines where the very poor dumpster dive for food and recook it to sell to other poor folks. They particularly look for meat and bones like thrown garbage from McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken. You are lucky to live in a country where the poor is considered rich by people in third world countries. Americans need to stop whining and be more grateful. Yes, they're ridiculous. Cannot stand these people tbh, and by the way they're free to move to a different state or different country. And I say this sincerely. Not antagonistically. To the people complaining, literally consider these options. Some parts are. Look at homeless camps in parts of say Michigan, or people being turned away from some healthcare as they cannot afford the bill. The US is very unequal as a country. For some people some lifestyles are entirely third world. Just to be clear, the US does have a lot of homeless people living in squalor, starving, sick, and dying on the streets. May not be as severe of a situation as Bolivia, I don't know. But we definitely have an issue with poverty in this nation. Deleted. Everyone, OP is not saying that there isn't inequality in the US. They're just saying that the US is way more developed and have less problems than poor countries. And because of that the US's problems aren't as grave as other countries. When they say third world, they are saying, US is no longer equivalent to a first world, developed nation. While the US is better than Colombia, it's generally worse than other developed countries. Do you have a name for not developed but not undeveloped? Semi-developed? I'll be honest, I didn't think Americans ever said the US was a third world country. In all my experiences, they've only ever stated it's the literal top country. This is very evident when you cross the US-Canada border on Niagara Falls. On one side you have a slum with collapsing buildings, empty plazas and giant potholes all over road. On the US side A&R, on the Canadian side you have a vibrant tourist city. I have lived in third world Latin American countries. They have well-maintained areas as well as slums, much like the United States. High rates of poverty, check low level of overall education, check economic instability, check political instability, check high mortality rates, check. Yeah, go to Guatemala and see what real problems look like, that's all I can say. By definition the US can't be a third world country anyway, so there isn't a view to be changed here. This is just an actual statement of fact. First world, second world and third world were delineations of how countries aligned during the Cold War. It's like spoiled children who scream that their parents hate them if they don't get everything they want. If the world was Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, Americans would be Veruca Salt. America is full of dumbasses saying shit that they don't even know what they're talking about. Greater than CMV. Americans saying that the US is a third world country are ignorant and have never set foot on actual third world countries. No, not all of them. A lot of Americans saying that the US is a third world country are malicious and have spent 2 weeks at the Sandals in Cancun. First, second and third world country refers to their affiliation in WW2, so yes, the US is not a third world country. But there are bad things in first world countries. The term is arbitrary. Agree. Americans' view of our poor is skewed. I will admit we are spoiled. We have no clue what third country poor is. Poor people in the US have cell phones, free school, clothes, roof overhead and eat daily. Anecdotally, I grew up in the States and have lived in a third world country for 20 plus years. It is hyperbole to say that the US is a third world country. It is not hyperbole to say that US is fast becoming a third world country. Statistically this is also true. Removed.